Hello everyone, welcome to Globeware where maps meet motives. The US just took a bold step, and this time not just against China, but also countries like India, Vietnam, and even the UAE. In May 2025, the US banned American companies from sending advanced AI chips to any nation that might re export them to China. That means even if China buys these chips indirectly through Indian or Vietnamese firms, it's now illegal. Why? Because Washington fears that even a single loophole could help China dominate the next generation of AI, robotics, and military tech. And how did China respond? In just 48 hours, Chinese state media accused the US of trying to cripple global innovation and warned of countermeasures. So, what's happening here? This is not just about chips, this is a full blown supply chain war where every country that wants to stay neutral is being forced to pick a side. It's quiet but brutal, and it's shaping the future of power, economy, and technology. Let's break down what this war really is, who's attacking, who's resisting, and what it means for countries like India. This is going to be deep, calm, and sharp, so stay with me till the end. To understand this war, we have to go back to 2018. That's when US President Donald Trump started a trade war with China, putting heavy tariffs on Chinese goods. At first, it looked like a normal economic fight, but then in 2020, things became serious. The US blocked Chinese tech giant Huawei from buying key American technology. Why? Because Huawei was building 5G infrastructure across the world, and Washington believed this gave China too much global power. Then came 2022. The US passed the CHIPS Act, giving 52 billion to American companies to build factories inside the US. This was the moment it became clear. This wasn't just a trade issue anymore. It became a technology war, a war to control semiconductors, rare earth minerals, AI chips, and more. China also hit back by controlling exports of gallium, graphite, and rare earth minerals. These are critical for batteries, satellites, and defense systems. And slowly, this war spread from chips to minerals, from economics to national security. This is the background of the supply chain war we see today. Now, in 2025, both countries have taken this war to a whole new level. Let's first look at the United States. After passing the CHIPS Act, the US has now launched the National Semiconductor Strategy, giving long-term subsidies to chip manufacturers like Intel, TSMC, and Micron, who are building factories in Arizona or Texas. Not just that, the US is also working closely with allies like Japan, South Korea, and Netherlands to block the export of advanced chip making machines to China. Now let's look at China's side. China has increased investments in Made in China 2025 policy, especially in AI chips, quantum computing, and battery technology. To fight back, China has also started pushing renminbi trade deals with countries like Russia and Iran, aiming to weaken the US dollar's dominance in the global trade. So as of today, the supply chain war is being fought on many fronts: semiconductors, AI, rare earths, and even currency power. In this war of supply chains, India is walking a very thin line. The United States is pushing hard to build alternative manufacturing bases, and India is one of the top choices, along with Vietnam and Mexico. Recently, the US passed CHIPS Act and Inflation Reduction Act, offering billions in subsidies to shift production out of China. At the same time, India is deeply dependent on China for key raw materials. 80% of our solar panels are either imported from China or made by using Chinese parts. Over 60% of APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients used in our medicines, come from China. So India faces a dilemma. If we shift too close to US, China may retaliate economically by raising prices or delaying key exports. But if we hesitate to align with the West, we may miss the opportunity to become the serious player in a global manufacturing. This is why India is trying to maintain a strategic autonomy, playing both sides but protecting its own long-term interest. In this game, even neutrality is a bold strategy. While most people focus on factories and finished goods, there's another layer to this war that's mostly invisible, and that is the control of critical raw materials and routes. Take rare earth elements for example. These are special minerals used in everything from fighter jets to electric cars and smartphones. And here's the key point: China controls more than 60% of the global rare earth production and about 85% of its refining capacity. So, if China wants, it can quietly slow down or restrict exports, and that would hit the US defense and tech industry hard. Now look at the battery tech, especially lithium, cobalt, and nickel. Even though countries like Australia, Chile, and DRC mine this, China dominates the battery supply chain because most of the processing and cell manufacturing happens in China. And lastly, global trade routes. The South China Sea handles one third of the world shipping. If tensions rise here, supply chains from Taiwan, Korea, and Japan to the west could collapse. So, this isn't just about tariffs or take bans, it's about who controls the roots of the tree, not just the fruits. And right now, China is holding most of the roots. Now, the question is, how is the USA responding to this silent but dangerous supply chain war? Washington is using three main strategies: alliances, friendshoring, and tech restrictions. First, alliances. The US has formed supply chain partnerships with countries like India, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and Vietnam. For example, under the Indo Pacific Economic Framework, America is working closely with India and Southeast Asian nations to build alternative to Chinese manufacturing. Second, friendshoring, which means shifting factories and investments to friendly countries instead of risky ones like China. That's why you can see US companies like Micron and Google setting up plants in India and Vietnam. Third, technology restrictions. The US has blocked China's access to advanced semiconductors and chip making tools through the CHIPS Act and export bans. So, overall, America is not sitting quietly. It's building a web of allies, tightening controls, and slowly breaking its economic dependence on China. Now, let's talk about India. In this entire supply chain conflict, India is not just a spectator, it's becoming a major player. Global companies are slowly moving away from China, and many of them are looking at India as the next big destination. Why? Because India offers three key advantages: a large young workforce, political stability, and strong relations with the West. According to a Morgan Stanley report, India is now the fastest growing destination for FDI manufacturing, especially in sectors like electronics, semiconductors, and defense. Even companies like Foxconn, which used to rely almost entirely on China, are now investing billions in Indian factories. And it's not just private companies. The Indian government is also actively pushing schemes like PLI, production linked incentives, to attract global manufacturers. So, this shift is not temporary, it's strategic. India is slowly becoming a critical part of global supply chain realignment. And in the coming years, we could see India play the role China once played, but with more trust and transparency. Now, here comes the real question: can China really be replaced, or is the world creating more supply chain bubbles? See, China is not just a big manufacturer, it's deeply embedded in the supply chain. From rare earth minerals to EV batteries to solar panel components, China still dominates. According to recent IEA report, China controls over 80% of global supply in key areas like battery grade lithium, cobalt processing, and solar wafer production. Even if companies shift their assembly line out of China, many raw materials and tech components will come from Chinese companies. So, in many cases, made in India or made in Vietnam still depends on supplied by China. That's why experts believe this is not just a simple shift, it's a long term supply chain war, with every country trying to build its own secure domestic manufacturing ecosystem. The real battle now is not only about cost, but about control. So what does this supply chain war really mean for future of world and for India? The truth is this isn't just a war of soldiers. It's a war of factories, containers and components. And this war will decide who builds the future and who depends on others for it. The USA wants to break China's dominance, but it cannot do it alone, and that's where India becomes important. India has the demographic strength, a growing market, and now even policy push through schemes like PLI. Even big players like Apple, Macron, and Tesla are slowly shifting operations to India. But India still needs strong infrastructure, faster clearances, and better logistics to truly become a trusted hub. This is not just a trade game anymore. It's a geopolitical chessboard. And if India plays smart, it won't just be a spectator. It can become the next big power in the supply chain era. And if you found this video insightful, do like and share it. It helps the channel grow and reach more curious minds like yours.